Is Blizzard making Augmentation Evoker even better than it already is? Actually, they might be. But for now, servers are down. My name is Swag, and this is the Vault Day Update. Double up this week with 2 bonus events. First, you have the Legion Time Walking, so you can level up faster from 60 to 70 in Legion dungeons. And then once you hit max level at 70, pick up the weekly quest to complete 5 Time Walking dungeons for an epic piece of loot. And when you tire of running dungeons, we also have the Pet Battle bonus event this week. You can earn extra experience for your pets when you're battling, and on top of that, complete the weekly quest for even more goodies. Experience the golden age of world PvP this week with the PvP Brawl, South Shore versus Terran Mill. Teleport back to a pre-Cataclysm Hillsbrad foothills to compete in a 40v40 death match against the opposing faction. This is such an epic battleground, and it's one of my favorites whenever it's in rotation. The goal is to be the first team to 300 points. Players will rank up by getting more kills on opposing players or opposing NPCs, and the higher ranked someone is, the more points they are worth for your team. The big news this week is class tuning, and lots of it. I mean, it's to be expected at this point with how much Blizzard has been doing this entire expansion. Even in this past update, a 0.5 update, we had a whole new spec added and 2 class reworks with mages and holy paladins. So of course we're going to be seeing plenty of tuning in the following weeks. Blood DK, Prot Warrior, and Prot Paladin are all seeing some pretty good damage increases coming in. However, Blood is going to be the highest at 10%. And even then, if I'm being skeptical, I think we're still going to see Blood DK at the bottom of the damage charts. And I think that's intentional. Something to keep in mind, anytime we talk about balance or class tuning, Blizzard has stated before that they're actually not trying to perfectly balance every class and every spec, but instead create a pendulum swing in the way they balance. So if a class is good one season, then the next season it probably won't be so good. Blood Death Knights are a great example of this. On the back half of Shadowlands, Blood Death Knights were incredible, absolutely insane meta tanks. Now, in Dragonflight, they're kind of bottom of the barrel. Their survivability is good, which is nice, but their damage output is just horrendous. And that way, Vengeance Demon Hunters, Bear Tanks can kind of get the spotlight right now. Prot Warriors and Prot Paladins had the spotlight last season. That's why Blood Death Knights have received countless damage buffs and still remain at the bottom of the DPS charts. Their goal isn't to make them a meta tank or even bring them up to the halfway point. It's just to make them viable enough to complete 20s and lower. Keep this strategy in mind anytime we talk about class tuning. Hunters and Windwalker monks are getting some buffs this week, which is great to see. They absolutely needed it. However, I'm being a little speculative here. I would not be surprised if we saw a hunter rework on the charts coming up soon. Resto Shaman and Discipline Priests are getting some healing buffs. It's great to see. I actually believe, though, that all healers need some buffing across the charts. Healing just feels really low this season. We've talked about it in the past. These last 2 changes feel a bit odd to me. I really hope I'm misunderstanding it, and if I am, comment below because I would love the correction. But as we talk about this, think of it in terms of that pendulum swing, that as Blizzard is working on tuning, sometimes they really want a class to perform well, even when it desperately needs to be nerfed. So, right now, the meta dungeon group is a Bear Tank, sometimes Vengeance, but Bear Tank, you got the Augmentation Evoker, a Shadow Priest, usually a Mage in there, and then a Holy Paladin. Those 5 together are just absolutely insane in dungeons working together. So of course it's no surprise to me when Blizzard announced that they are nerfing Augmentation Evokers and Shadow Priests, 2 DPS classes that are basically necessary in every single Mythic dungeon. However, I don't know if they actually are nerfing them. It almost feels like a buff coming in. I could be wrong. Augmentation may be a nerf, but Shadow actually kind of feels like it's buffing the class. Admittedly, Shadow Priest did take a pretty heavy hit to their AoE. However, all of their single target abilities look like they're getting buffed in order to compensate. And a few of their spells cost a bit more mana, but that doesn't really look like it's going to be a huge deal in rotation and how they play the class. This is really starting to look more like a buff than a nerf. Shadow Priests are still bringing PI to their groups, which is just incredible on its own, and now their single target damage for tyrannical weeks is going to be even more impressive. I think this is going to make Shadow Priests more valuable, not less valuable in their groups. And similarly, Augmentation Evokers are kind of feeling the same way, where on the surface it appears to be a nerf, but I'm not convinced that this is entirely a nerf. What really gives it away for me though is the developer notes on this nerf. There's a line in the notes that says this: "These adjustments will increase their personal damage in all situations and moderately reduce the effectiveness of their buffs in dungeon content." Notice the intentional language here, where they say that they're buffing their personal damage, but only moderately nerfing their group buffs, and only nerfing those group buffs in dungeon content. One of the evoker buffs previously did 40% more during dungeons versus like raid content, and now it's only going to do 20% more in dungeons versus raid content. It seems like a decent drop, but it's just for one ability, and it's really actually not that huge of a drop. However, they are being buffed on just about every one of their personal damage abilities and their ability to buff themselves. What this appears to be to me is actually not an attempt to nerf their group buffs, but rather an attempt to maybe fix how the DPS charts are looking. One of the issues that players are running into with the Augmentation Evoker, and it's becoming less frequent now, but still happening, is that players are looking at damage meters in-game from plugins and add-ons like Details that aren't tracking Evoker's buffs on other players. And so it appears that Augmentation Evokers are doing poorly in dungeons, and some of these group leaders and random players are kind of trashing and insulting the Evokers in their groups for the low damage output. Of course, if you're a player worth their salt who knows what they're doing in dungeons, you would be well aware that Augmentation Evokers are absolutely insane buffs to any dungeon group. You want an Augmentation Evoker in your group. But Blizzard doesn't want toxicity in their game. No duh, it makes sense. Why would they want that? And so they need Augmentation to look better on the charts that players are using. I think that this whole class tuning is actually an attempt to make Augmentation look better on the DPS meters, while simultaneously making it appear like they're not just straight buffing Augmentation. And I think it's intentional on Blizzard's part that they want Augmentation Evokers to perform extremely well, above and beyond all other DPS in the dungeon. Why? Because they need Augmentation to be the first in a series of changes that will lead towards adding a new role into the meta of WoW, that we will see support classes become integrated into the game in a way that it's never happened before. I'm not going to spend more time on it today, but later this week, I'm going to be dropping a video of my theories of what Blizzard is planning with this support idea as a meta in the game. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can be the first to catch it when that video releases. But for now, hopefully the servers are back up. My name is Swag, and thanks for letting me be your guide to the world of Warcraft.